This is a video on those of you in the consulting industry, and it comes from a conversation I had at a sataya shop in Daikanyama yesterday with some young McKinsey people. And I guess the first point that I made with them was there's a book by Helsinki about 20 years ago, Routledge Press, British, on management gurus, which really lays out, it's the only book I've seen that really does a good job of laying out the 8-year ideal way dynamics of major consulting firms. And then there's a section of that book that talks about the Boston Consulting Group and McKinsey strange atmosphere of their brochures. And you realize that they originated in helping Daddy's stupid son hire a brain since he was an idiot when he took over Daddy's business. And there were two things involved. An MBA, which was in 1900 primarily a vehicle using the rubric scientific management. There are some special techniques, and the colleges really promoted those special scientific techniques, because that meant that technique was the basis of management instead of knowing the product, knowing the customers, and having a passion for the world. And that's been a great distortion and lie ever since. Colleges have made themselves, insinuated themselves into business in a way that really is harmful, extremely deleterious. It's really helpful to go back through history and look at the harm that's been done because of the colleges. America's greatness in terms of GDP per person was built just before, from 1880 to 1900, and, you know, of course, based on stuff earlier than that, just before the schools of business were created, and started using tailored scientific management to dress up Daddy's stupid female body-chasing son to say that he could be promoted over those men who had been with Daddy when Daddy built the business. And that was the purpose of the MBA, was to justify this moron being appointed head of the business over people who really knew how to run it, because he had special techniques from the MBA called scientific management. Really, and that's, I'm not exaggerating, that's the way it was. That's how they got created. And then ever since then, these analytic, unexperienced, gutless, passionless professors with their moronic economic theories about agency theory from Jensen and all that crap, which never works in reality at all. I mean, just reading the article's abstract lets you know that there's not the remotest humanity in their idea of what an agent is. And because the equations are too hard when you put humanity in. And so they leave out all the humanity they possibly can so they can get an equation simple enough to solve. And then it turns out to be a delusional departure from reality. Guess what? Ha ha. And when I was at MIT, I took 1401, Paul Samuelson's beginning economics course, and I tell you, I had 3 weeks in a row of these people are sick, very sick people. This is a very dishonest group of people, this thing called economics. And now you see Taylor and these, Taylor, or whatever you call him from Chicago, these behavioral economists saying, well, if we inject little bits of psychology, and little bits of experiment, little bits of real, how people really behave into economics, what happens? Well, I'll tell you what happens. All that 10-arrow crap, general equilibrium, goes to hell, and you end up with an economy with 1,000 equilibriums, and you can't tell which one it'll be at. And all these assumptions by all these economists about how to get us out of that trap from the liberals and the Republicans just don't work. So, if you're in Helsinki's book on management gurus, it's got these 8-wave idea cycles that pass over the world. And you've got companies like Procter & Gamble and that are on the cutting edge, that adopt and test out these ideas before anybody else does. Then you've got companies that, you know, test them out after their friend companies do, right after the P&G Pioneer guys. And then you've got companies that are always doing everything late at the end, just after, as everybody finishes, they're getting interested in finding out about it. Somebody has called this the airplane magazine dynamics, and that in business and first class on the airplane, it all depends on what's in the magazines that they have there. And some guys finally pick it up when it gets to the airplane magazines. Other people are bookstore guys. They pick it up when it gets to the magazines in the bookstore. And then you have the rare P&G guys. They're the subscription guys who get it before it's in the bookstores. I don't know if anybody's done research, but it would be funny because dumb stuff like that often is true. So you got this 8-wave thing. Now, you also have this thing that McKinsey and BCG were brought up in a culture on the East Coast of the United States. And you have this guy Henderson, the head of Stanford University, coming over, this is a few months ago, to Roosevelt Island in New York, where New York was going to donate some land and try to get Stanford to create their version of their engineering school on the East Coast and create a Silicon Valley there. And then that blew up. Henderson got angry, and there's a New Yorker article. He went back on the plane angry and shut the whole thing down. And they took Technion in Israel instead. And neither the Israelis are not going to succeed, and Stanford would not have succeeded. For the reason that Henderson went home, it appears that New York threw him into a room of 11 lawyers and a whole bunch of contracts that said, you get all the risk and we get all the reward, you get all the risk and we get all the reward on each contract. And this was, you know, how you get a project started according to common sense on the East Coast. And, you know, it's hard to describe on how many levels that's sick and evil. And how Harvard-like it is. This is what they teach you at Harvard. This is how you build a relationship with people. Throw 11 lawyers at them into a room and push in front of them a bunch of unequal contracts where we get all the good stuff and you get nothing. That's the East Coast way of greeting people. Building enthusiasm. The East Coast way of building enthusiasm. And I think what happened to Henderson in that meeting is he saw that there is a special culture on the West Coast, that Silicon Valley is that culture. And if you transplant that culture into New York, it's just going to be eaten alive by the evil culture of Harvard and MIT and the East Coast. Individual over all, me over you, lawyers over cooperation, finance over product, safety over enthusiasm. It's a sick group of people. California and Silicon Valley have contributed 8 times more per year for the last 40 years to the U.S. GDP than Harvard, MIT, and those East Coast guys have. So, why? Well, because they're interested in building something, and they're not interested in throwing lawyers at you to defend their ass as the way to greet you in a meeting. So, I mean, it's so deeply sick, and Henderson didn't realize really how sick it was. And then he went there and he saw these people are mentally ill. These East Coast guys are suicidal business-wise. They don't have the slightest clue how you build cooperation, how you build a business, how you build a Silicon Valley anywhere. And so he realized that you could transplant all you wanted stuff from the West Coast to the East Coast, but it would just be torn to pieces by the little tiny, smartly educated, sleek-looking sharks that Harvard generates every year. Self-interested little baboons trying to get their 3rd boat in their 4th house and their 4,000th prostitute. And cocaine addiction for their kids with Lamborghinis. Cocaine, Lamborghini, prostitutes, 3rd boats, and 4th houses. The Harvard ideal of life. And dead to foreigners from the little hobby wars that Harvard generates as a side effect of their enthusiasm for counting dead bodies. You know, their dead body while they're graduating from Harvard, and everybody else's after they finish stealing the wealth of the American middle class every 20 years in a banking crisis. I mean, you know, people get angry at me for saying that. I'm not exaggerating. It actually happened, my dear people. That was reality. It is reality now. We haven't paid for it yet. And you stupid baby boomers are going to have no retirement and don't realize it, but it's already been stolen from you. You have no retirement. And it's been given to you by the world's top colleges, by the top professors who have the most advanced research methods and who publish the most papers in unread journals. And, you know, who would have thought that a system that arrogant, that narcissistic, and that stupid wouldn't turn out to be evil? Really? Oh, give me a break. And then, look, you have evidence. You've got McGill, just quadrupled tuition, on an anti-Harvard MBA structure that works, that creates leaders instead of thieves. And they've been doing it for generations. You can talk to Henry Mintzberg. Read his books, for crying out loud. He's been writing books about this for 20 years. It's nothing that I've invented. I'm offensive because I believe it, and I talk it. And I don't walk around lying to kiss up to all these businessmen. You know, there was a time where you stole money, other people in New York, Manhattan, Chicago didn't talk to you. But our culture is so debased today that people worship businessmen like Weil at Citibank, who created all this thievery at Citibank and ruined the company. It went bankrupt. The U.S. government had to save it with $100 billion and more, and still subsidizing it with zero interest rates. That's not for us, you know. That's for the banks, those zero interest rates. Any idiot can make money at a bank. If the government gives me free money, I can make money with it. Guarantee you that. And that's what our banks are doing. You don't need a brain to make money at a bank. You don't need a Harvard education. You need a Harvard education to hide your thieving. That's what you get. You got to look impressive personally. I know equations. I know Milton Friedman's equations. Wow, I know an equation. I must be smart. 800 GRE mindset. McNamara killing Vietnamese and losing the first American war to be lost by a Harvard guy counting dead bodies. Oh, we got another 1,000. Oh, wow, another 1,000 today. Oh, I'm fighting George Washington, but I don't know it. Yeah. You needed, you know, one less optimization, Harvard, GRE, 800 Kennedy School stuff, and a little bit more history courses, didn't he? He needed a little bit more thinking in college, you know, thinking, you know, not equations, thinking. People who can't think hide behind math. Lord Maynard Keynes said, and he was right. So what you've got this deeply, deeply unbilled, anti-billed, thieving East Coast business culture. And I'm in it for me, psychopaths generated by top colleges on the East Coast. And you have the consulting companies out of that mindset, selling to CEOs who are hiring a brain because they're too stupid to run their business. And you got to be honest, you hire McKinsey, it's because you're a moron. There are no smart people who hire McKinsey, I guarantee you that. Just look at their PowerPoint. It comes straight out of, you know, Fast Company. It's incredible. They just add some data they pick up from a national data set somewhere. And, you know, and then they even put a little p-value there, you know, show you, we know, the elementary correlation. It's just incredible. And then they believe it. And they generate this stuff and they believe it. And then you got these awestruck VPs and CEOs, oh, multiple correlation, wow, oh, wow, sounds really advanced, must be true. I've been there. I've heard these presentations. I love the selling against McKinsey because they're about 8 years out of date all the time. And they don't have any people who understand technology. Not one. Nobody in the whole company ever understood any technology. I mean, maybe somebody understood a watch once. You know, that was a hiring mistake. You know, the key thing to understand McKinsey and BCG culture is look at the mandated training they give you early when you're there. Look at the training they mandate for their new hires. This is an absolute demonstration of what the executives know that they're not getting in the people they hire. What's wrong with the people we hire? And that's what that training, that mandated first training is. What's wrong with them is, and, you know, look at it. They care about people. They care about customers. They want to build businesses. And they don't understand their business here at McKinsey. So we have to get all that crap out of them. And we have to teach them the 11 desiderata to force a negotiation of victory and to make sure it's our victory and not the other guy's victory, and we've got him screwed from the beginning. And that's what the training teaches you. And, you know, you say, you know, evil, bloody, vampire leeches is sort of the style of this company's culture in the training. And yes, right, you got it. You were well trained. Go, leech, 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 suck, suck, suck. Blood-sucking leeches. Really, they don't build businesses. You know, they say, well, this one has got products, and that's always hard when you've got products, and it's risky, so the hell with it. Let's go buy one that doesn't have products. That's safer. Yeah, it's a lot safer. But, you know, they make money by being hired brains for leaders that don't have any brains.